and the leading voice in college football, Joel Klatt. Good morning, Joel.
Good morning. How are we doing today?
Doing all right, doing all right. We are certainly abuzz here after yesterday afternoon's press conference up in Boulder, where Coach Prime officially let us know who's going to be starting at quarterback for the Buffs against Georgia Tech on Friday, and that is Kaiden Salter. He reminded us all that we all should have known that, and there should be no reason why we thought anything other than that. Joel, what are your thoughts on the quarterback dynamic in Boulder and Kaiden Salter starting the season?
Well, I think that it's what I was expecting. I think starting a true freshman is incredibly difficult, and Salter is a guy that had a lot of experience under his belt. And I don't think that Prime is one of these guys that wants to go through like a rebuild and wants to go through the growing pains. Because let's not forget now, he's never coached a team without his son being the quarterback. And so he wants someone out there that he can trust. And I think that he's going to get that with a veteran player in Kaiden Salter. That doesn't mean that Julian Lewis won't see the field at some point, and maybe he becomes the quarterback and the starter at some point during the course of the year. But one thing that I do think is interesting is as we focus so much on quarterback, and rightly so, obviously such an important position, and really Shedeur was the linchpin and the turnaround from what was the worst team in the Power 5 to then a 9-win team a year ago. But what they've done and what Shedeur allowed them to do and what Travis Hunter allowed them to do is go out there and be competitive right away while they were fixing the structural issues with the program, and more specifically, the line of scrimmage. And I think Colorado now versus what they were 2 years ago at the line of scrimmage is night and day. And I think that's what I'm most excited to see. Yes, I'm excited to see Salter and some of these guys go out there and play, and that'll be great. But the idea of what they are at the line of scrimmage, I think, is what intrigues me the most, and certainly what will allow them to have success this year if they're able to do that, and what I think is a really deep and parity-driven league in the Big 12.
Joel, talking about the transition here, you lost, obviously, Travis, Shedeur, but you lost a lot of other talented skill position guys. What are your expectations for this new-look CU team this year?
I've always felt like Prime was better suited maybe than anybody around the country, but certainly than any of his predecessors at Colorado to recruit skill. I think we saw that right away. He's able to attract skill, whether it's from the high school ranks or from the transfer portal. So I want to be really clear because Travis is a unicorn, and Shedeur was incredible. And you're not going to be able to replace those guys, in particular Travis, who was, the best player on the field on both sides of the ball, which is still kind of blows my mind. But they're going to have really good players. Think about all the other skill position players that they were able to have. And I'm expecting them to be potent again in the skill group. Now, here's, I think, what a concern for me would be with Colorado is the defense took such a great step forward a year ago. And not having the Kai Hill Green or Silman Craig, those two guys were like real mainstays and linchpins on the defense. And so replacing those guys, I think, is going to be very difficult. Again, they're going to have to lean into what they hope is a structural change and a structural benefit from getting better at the line of scrimmage. And I think that can happen. But this is one of the best pass rushing teams in the Big 12 from a year ago. And they're going to definitely need to maintain that if they want to have a similar or better season this year.
Hey, Joel, you mentioned Shedeur, and I want to talk to you a little bit about Shedeur going into Cleveland and kind of where he is right now and what you've seen. Third preseason game, coming off the injury, the oblique. Dropped back 11 times, took 5 sacks. I looked at all the sacks. I thought 3 of them were his fault, holding the ball, scrambling around, falling out of the back of the pocket. But what have you seen from Shedeur, and what do you think the future of Shedeur in the NFL is?
Yeah, so what you saw, what we've seen from Shedeur this preseason is in a lot of ways exactly what we should have expected, which is, Mark, when you turn on the film, and there has been film this preseason where it looks really good. Mm-hmm. And when he's in rhythm and throwing with his feet, it's really good because he's hyper accurate. So he can do what we always talk about, which is control the game through being on time and on target. He can do that. Now, as soon as he is off schedule, he holds it too long. And when he holds it too long, it goes south in a hurry, which is one of the reasons for the slide, last year in the draft. Maybe not for the entire slide, but part of it. And that's something that he has to learn. The internal clock for a quarterback, I would argue, is maybe, as important a trait as any trait out there, because what I don't think many people talk about enough, and maybe this is our fault as analysts, Mark, but the quarterback is the sixth man in the in the protection.
Mm-hmm.
He's the seventh man in the protection. You have to protect yourself as a quarterback, not only through the knowledge of how everybody is targeted and where everybody is going and who's unblocked and who's not unblocked, but also the timing with which you need to throw the football. Because it is unfair for me, if I'm standing back there behind Stink, it is unfair for me to require him to block for 4.5 or 5 seconds. That's impossible. So I hold a responsibility within the protection as a quarterback, and that's something that I think Shedeur has always struggled with because of this belief that he's always going to be able to make the play or make the throw. And that can't happen in the NFL. The elusiveness that he showed at Colorado in the Big 12 is not going to be afforded him at the NFL. It's too fast. And so this idea of putting yourself into the timing of the offense and holding the keys to the timing of the offense in your feet and in your mind as a quarterback, that's where he's going to need to grow the most. But when you see him do it, it's really good, which makes me or leads me to believe that once that timing mechanism gets figured out, that he's going to be able to be a starter in the league. I still believe that.
Talking to Joel Klatt, our college football insider, presented by Groove Toyota. Joel, I think for the Buffs to ultimately get where they want to go and build off of the season they had last year, similar to the conversations.
Wait. Hold on. You're really good. You're very clean. I'm sorry. Who? I know this isn't Mike. Who is this?
Oh, this is Richie Carney.
Richie. How we doing, Richie?
Doing good, man. How are you?
You guys vouch for Richie?
Yeah, Richie.
Should I throw him off, or are we
good?
Is he all right?
Yeah, he's good. You can do whatever you want with Richie. He can respond.
I didn't play wide receiver in the NFL, Joel, so you don't have to hate me right on the onset. But I fully.
Well, wide receivers are typically they just overvalue.
Don't get
themselves.
him started.
Yeah,
not on the first show.
We've been very clear on this. They're like the most dependent position on the entire field, and they act like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't have to hate me right out of the onset because I didn't play wide receiver in the NFL, but I do actually kind of want you to tell me why I'm wrong going into this season for the Colorado Buffaloes, because I just feel like, and I've been given pushback for it before, that we're entering year 3 with Coach Prime up there at Folsom. And
well, Richie, you aren't wrong. We are entering year 3.
So far, so good, right? So far, so
you're
good.
On it, Richie.
So far, so good. Where I may step into
Richie is an astute guy, boys.
Where I may step into some wrong territory, Joel, is that I just feel like at some point, even in a year where they may be faced with some regression and things look like they may be hovering around that 6-7 win mark, that at some point Coach Prime and the Buffs have to be knocking on that door for a Big 12 title game and making an expanded and maybe soon to be future expanded college football playoff format. And it just feels like there's this wrestling back and forth of a sentiment to say, hey, well, you can't expect them to do that this year because they're going through the transition at quarterback and they don't have a Heisman Trophy winner on the roster anymore and all of that. Is it unfair of me to put that expectation and continue to put that expectation on the Buffs as soon as this year in 2025?
Listen, losing two players like Shedeur and Travis make it really difficult. Any team, like for instance, I think Ohio State is going to have a regression of some form. They had 14 draft picks. Michigan had a regression after a national championship. When you lose really good players, NFL caliber players, it's really hard to replace them. For any program around the country, and it's certainly no different for Colorado. I don't think outside of guys like I was saying right when Prime came, that within 3 years they were going to be playing meaningful games in November that were in relation to the conference championship, which then were in relation to the college football playoff. That happened last year. Here's the thing with this league: the Big 12 is so deep. I don't think that there's a great team, and I don't think that there's an awful team. Maybe there's a couple of bad teams. I think UCF could really struggle this year, so so on and so forth. But everybody is similar. And so what ends up happening is you're going to be in a lot of one-score games. Well, in a lot of one-score games, if you've got players that can just rise above the X's and O's a little bit and go out there and make plays, you're going to end up winning some of those games, which they were able to do a year ago. Now it's going to be more difficult because they don't have those players, or those players are unproven. But when I walk through this schedule, I think that, personally, at TCU is a really difficult game. At Utah is always a really difficult game. But they get teams like Iowa State and Arizona State at home. That's great for them before finishing at Kansas State. I think that this is an 8-win team. Now, if you're telling me that you want them to compete for a playoff spot in the Big 12 title this year, I think that might be a little far-fetched. But in a league in which you're going to have so many one-score games, maybe it's not totally out of the question. I just think that we have to remember, in so many ways, you got to remember where we came from with this program and where we're still going. And, putting that type of pressure on this season, I think might be a little bit outlandish.
Last one for me, the Joel Klatt show, the podcast. How hard was it to focus when you're staring into the steely blue eyes of one Tom Brady, the world's greatest American?
At one point I was like, do I need to ask him a question? Can I sit in his lap?
Right.
I got lost in the dreaminess.
Mm-hmm.
And then at one point I felt like did he compliment me? Do I need to compliment him back?
Right.
The bone structure, I don't know. It was like an aura. I felt like I was Charlie Murphy in True Hollywood Stories with Rick James, because there was an aura. Give it to me, baby. And but I will tell you, Mark, he was really engaged. He gave some really thoughtful answers, not only about college football, but the National Football League. That was a real treat. I've been such a fan for a long time, and to be able to sit down with him was awesome. You can go check it out. It's on YouTube still, Joel Klatt show, and it was fun. And, yeah, there was some dreaminess. There was at one point I was like, wait. What did I just ask? I blacked out.
Right. Normally I know this about him. That's going to be the last time you ever get him, because you rival in handsomeness with him. And normally he will not go on any program where the host is as handsome as he is. So that's a one-time shot, I think.
I'm flattered.
That's a one-time shot. That's why Jimmy Garoppolo got cut. That's why they traded Jimmy Garoppolo away.
Get me out of here. What's going on?
Yeah.
We took a photo at the end, and he immediately was like, "Hey, let me see that." And I was like, "Oh, let me." So the photographer gave him the camera, and he immediately just says, "Nope, lighting's bad." And he was like, let's turn. And so we literally took a second photo because he felt like the lighting wasn't good enough. And then sure enough, the photo turned out, and I was like, oh, he was right. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. Well, he put you in the shade on the second photo, so he shined, because the first one you were in the light and he wasn't, and he can't have that.
I mean, that's nice of you, but I think we all know that that's untrue. I think even my wife would be like, nah, I don't know, Mark.
Fellas, I just got to say, my head is nowhere near as big as Mike Evans, and my heart has no bovine additions to it. But after sitting in a chair for the first time and getting the full experience of the Joel Klatt interview, I am left with the same exact amount of moisture. I got to be honest.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to be honest. Joel, thank you so much for joining us.
Richie's a cheap date, boys. Richie's a cheap date.
I have been accused of that, and I suppose I will have to own it. Joel, thank you so much. We'll touch base with you next week.
Well, you're welcome.
He is Joel Klatt, presented by Groove Toyota.